we finished in chapter 2. We're looking at verses up to 20, which was this parable of the bridegroom. And now we get these number of parabolic stories here, or metaphors really, that are tacked on to the end of this. And I'll leave it to the commentators to explain how it fits in with the rest of the story here. And we'll just have a look at the Greek. So starting at verse 21, oudes epiblema. Now epiblema is a very vague word. It's from epi and bello. It means something which is tossed on, something which is thrown on. Rachus is a third declension noun. This is actually a genitive, so it's rachos. And with these third declension neuter nouns, you remember that the stem, you put an epsilon there, and then you add your ending, your normal genitive ending, singular, for third declension is os, and this contracts to give you us. So although it looks like a accusative plural, it is in fact a genitive singular from rachos. Rachos is cognate with our word rag. It just means a piece of cloth. Agnaphu is alpha privative plus this gnaf root. There's a word gnaphus, a fuller. He's someone who does the washing for you. So this word means unwashed. It's an adjective. So in this metaphor, he says, nobody, epiorate, nobody stitches an epiblema. This is a patch made from unwashed piece of clothing. Nobody stitches it onto an palaion himation, an old garment. Nobody stitches it onto an old garment. The point being, of course, in the story is that if you do that and then wash it, a piece of cloth that's not been washed will then shrink, and that's when you'll have troubles if you put it onto an old garment. So eidome otherwise, now an equally vague word here, pleroma, which is a word with a very broad linguistic meaning, in fact, broad semantic use. It's probably just being used as a synonym for epiblema here. It means that which covers or fills, so a covering, but it's being here used as a patch. So otherwise, the patch lifts away from it, and then in opposition to that, we get tokainon to palaiou, the new from the old. So it's neuter agreeing with pleroma, so it's the new patch from the old piece of clothing. And kai schisma, the division, the tearing, the whole, genitai becomes keron, is worse. This is the comparative from kakos. It's in the nominative masculine, it's keron, it's third declension, and this is the neuter form in agreement with schisma. So it's actually neuter nominative here, agreeing with schisma, third declension. And oudes, and nobody, ballet casts. Now we get neon oinon, new wine, perhaps fresh wine, into palaios askus, into old wineskins. Neos just again, just another word for new, but possibly in the sense of fresh here. So wine which is fresh into wineskins which are old. Eidome otherwise, the wine, rexe is from reignumi. Reignumi, a lovely Homeric verb, means to break. It's cognate actually with our English word wreck. But anyway, so the wine breaks, or perhaps tears, the wineskins, and the wine perishes, and so the wineskins. And finally we get this little aphorism here tucked on the end. You have to supply something like put as the main verb here, because you've got these in the you've got the object in the accusative here. So one must put wine, net on wine, that's fresh wine, into new wineskins. So we have two words for new here, just a bit of variation, but you could translate that one as fresh. And it came to pass, kai egeneto, and then we have accusative and infinitive constructions. It came to pass that he, paraporuestai, from paraporuamai, that he was going beside, or going along, entois sabbasin, although it's plural, it just means on the Sabbath, it's idiomatic. He was going dia ton sporimon. This is the plural for ta sporima. Ta sporima is the nominative. These are the cornfields. So it's a neuter noun. So it's going through happened that he was going on the Sabbath through the cornfields, and his disciples, erxotop, began hodon poien, literally to make a path. This may be, well, there is an expression, hodon poiestai, in the classical Greek, but this may be an example of a Latinism. You get the Latin expression iter facere, to make a path. Mark has quite a number of Latinisms, and this could possibly be argued to be one of them, but the meaning is very clear. So his disciples began to make a path. Tilontes, participle from tillo, to pluck. Plucking tus stakuas, this is a third declension noun from stakus, meaning an ear of corn, so plucking the pieces of corn. And the Pharisees, elegon, began to say, imperfect again, to him, ide, behold, why do they do, that is, why do the disciples do on the Sabbath, hot for tuto hot, that which uk exestin, it is not lawful. It's that impersonal verb exesti, it is lawful. And he says to them, historic present, udepati anegnoti, this is third person aorist, the verb is anaginosko, or anagignosko in classical, anaginosko in fact Ionic Greek. This is the aorist. So never have you read epoies in David, what David did when esken, aorist from echo, he had crayon need, and he himself epanasen. Now this is from painao. So it's a contract alpha verb. Normally in the aorist that would lengthen to an eta, but there are a number of verbs it doesn't do that with, and this is one of them in later Greek. So, and he himself was hungry, and those with him. Again, we've got singular verb, but we have a double subject. Have you never read, continues on from there, how he went into, Greek loves to repeat the preposition, he went into the house of the Lord. Epi, now epi is one of those very difficult prepositions with a huge range of meanings and usages. If you look up the dictionary, your heart sinks. But anyway, one of the forms of it, one of the meanings of it, one of the usages of it is epi plus the genitive, meaning in the time of. And so in the time of the chief priest Abiathar. Now the reference to the story here is in 1 Samuel 21, but there Ahimelech, not Abiathar, was the chief priest at the time of David. And you often get this, unfortunately. I suppose people's memory slips a little bit, and Abiathar was the following priest after Ahimelech. But he's misremembered the name. Interestingly, both Matthew and Luke leave out this detail, perhaps because they've realised it's not quite right and they're just correcting him. Anyway, kai tus artus, and the bread of the, this is a funny expression, the bread of the putting out in front, literally, and in fact it's plural, so it's loaves. This is sometimes called the bread of the presence, or the shewbread, the showbread. These were bread offerings that were put out in front of the temple. So F again is aorist from estheo. It's an irregular aorist. You get estheo. The future is phagomai and the aorist is ephagon. And he ate the loaves of the showbread, which, relative pronoun from artus, it is not lawful, phagain, to eat, so there's the infinitive from estheo again, ame, except the priests, so we'd say except for the priests. We've got to understand except that the priests eat, it is lawful for the priests, understand, to eat. So slightly elliptical expression here, except for the priests. And he gave it also to the ones being with him. So this is usin is dative plural participle from own, the participle from the verb aimi. And he gave it also to those who were with him, to the ones being with him. And he began to say to them, or perhaps he said to them here, the Sabbath came into being on account of man, not man on account of the Sabbath. We get hosty here, which is rather odd. It's hosty really for hose. So it is something like, thus, Hohuios tu Theo, the Son of Man, is Lord, even of the Sabbath. Or perhaps it could be with the result that the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath. But it's a funny use of hosty here. And that's the end of chapter 2.